everyone, I'm Melissa here and welcome to your Melissa Moment. Hello everyone, I'm Melissa here. Welcome to your Melissa Moment and welcome to Turn the Page Thursday, where we are reading Stephen King's book, You Like It Darker. If you've missed the first few book club videos, go back and start from the beginning because this won't make sense and I'm going to give you some spoilers. So you don't want to hear that. So off you go. Okay, trust me, you need to leave now. Okay, they're gone. We can get back to it. For those of you who have been following along, let's do a quick little recap on last week. As we learned, poor Mr. Carmody did pass away. So that means his son now has the key to his desk drawer, which apparently holds the secret of how Mr. Carmody and his friend Butch became successful. He started reading what he found to be a type of book in itself. And we've been reading what Mr. Carmody wrote about that week in the woods. Let's set our timer and get into it. Alexa, set a timer for 30 minutes.
30 minutes, starting now.
A sudden breeze kicked up, rattling leaves off the trees. The sound made me startle and look over my shoulder. Butch did too. Then we looked at each other and laughed. Jumpy much? I asked. Just a little. Remember when we went in the old Spire place on a dare? Please wait. We have a delivery. Remember when we went in the old Spire place on a dare? 1946 or so, wasn't it? I remembered. Old Man Spire came back from Okinawa missing an eye and blew his head off in his parlor with a shotgun. It was the talk of the town. The house was supposed to be haunted, I said. We were what, 13? I guess. We went in and picked up some stuff to show our friends we'd been there. I got a picture, some old landscape I grabbed off the wall. What'd you get? A fucking sofa cushion, he said and laughed. Talk about stupid. I thought of the Spire house because the way I felt then is how I feel now. No deer, no birds, no squirrels. Maybe that house wasn't haunted, but these woods. He shrugged and drank some of his beer. We could leave today. Those headlights will probably be okay. Nope, tomorrow. We'll pack up tonight, go to bed early, and leave at first light, if it suits you. Suits me fine. Things would have been very different for us if we'd trusted Nellie Bell's headlights. Sometimes I think we did. Sometimes I think there's a Shadow Laird and a Shadow Butch who led shadow lives. Shadow Butch never went to Seattle. Shadow Laird never wrote a novel, let alone a dozen of them. Those shadows were decent men who lived unremarkable Harlow lives. They ran the dump, they owned a hauling company, they did the town's business the way it should be done, which means so the books balance at town meeting in March, and there's less bitching from mossbacks who'd be happy to bring back the poor farm. Shadow Butch got married to some girl he met in a Lewiston bop joint and had a litter of shadow young'uns. I tell myself now it was good none of that happened. Butch told himself the same thing. I know, because we told each other when we talk on the phone or later via Skype or FaceTime. It was all good. Of course it was. We became famous. We became rich. Our dreams came true. Nothing wrong with those things. And if I ever have doubts about the shape of my life, doesn't everybody? Don't you? That night, Butch threw a bunch of leftovers into a pot and called the result stew. We ate it with Wonder Bread and washed it down with well water, which was really the best part of the meal. I'll never let you cook again, I told Butch as we did our few dishes. After that mess, I'll hold you to it, he said. We packed up and what we had and put it by the door. Butch dealt the big first aid kit a sideways kick with one sneaker. Why do we always bring this thing? Because Sheila insists. She convinced one of us is gonna fall in a sinkhole and break a leg, or one of us will get shot. Probably by a flatlander with a scoped rifle. Bullshit. I think she's just superstitious. Believes the one time we don't haul it out here is the one time we'd need it. You want to go take another look? I didn't have to ask what he meant. Might as well. We went down on the clearing to look at the sky. There were no lights up there, but there was something on the bridge. Or rather, someone. A woman. Lying face down on the planks. What the fuck? Butch said and ran onto the bridge. I followed. I didn't like the idea of 3 of us on it at the same time and close together, but we weren't going to leave her lying there unconscious, maybe even dead. She had long black hair. It was a breezy night, and I noticed that when the wind gusted, her hair blew in a clump, as if the strands had been glued together. There were no gauzy flyaways, just the clump. Grab her feet, Butch said. We have to get her off before the fucking bridge falls into the fucking creek. He was right. I could hear the supports groaning and the jalassi thundering in full spats thanks to all the rain. I got her feet. She was wearing boots and corduroy pants, and there was something funny about them too. But it was dark and I was scared, and all I wanted right then was some solid ground under my feet. Butch lifted her by the shoulders and gave a cry of disgust. What? I asked. Never mind. Come on, hurry. We got her off the bridge and onto the clearing. Only 60 feet, but it seemed to take forever. Put her down, put her down. Jesus Christ. Butch dropped the top half of her and she face planted, but he paid no attention. He crossed his arms and started rubbing his hands in his armpits as if to get rid of something nasty. I started to put her legs down and froze, not able to believe what I thought I was seeing. My fingers appeared to have sunk into her boots, as if they were made of clay instead of leather. I pulled free and stared stupidly at the marks of my fingers as they smoothed out. My God. It's like, fuck. Like she's made out of Play-Doh or something. Butch. What? For Christ's sakes, what? Her clothes aren't clothes. It's like body paint. Or camouflage. Or some damn thing. He bent toward her. It's too dark. Have you got a flashlight? No, didn't bring it. Her hair. I touched it, then pulled away. It wasn't hair. It was something solid but pliable. Not a wig. More like a carving. I didn't know what it was. Is she dead? I asked. Is she... But just then, the woman took a long, raspy breath. One of her legs twitched. Help me turn her over, Butch said. I took one of her legs, trying to ignore that weird pliability. A thought, Gumby, shot through my head like a meteor and was gone. Butch grabbed her shoulder. We rolled her. Even in the dark, we could see she was a young, pretty, and ghastly white. We could see something else as well. It was the face of a department store mannequin, smooth and unlined. The eyes were shut. Only her lids had color. They looked bruised. This is not a human being, I thought. She took another raspy breath. It seemed to catch in her throat as if on hooks, and she exhaled. She didn't take another one. I think I would have stayed where I was, frozen, and let her die. It was Butch who saved her. He dropped to his knees, used 2 fingers to yank down her jaw, and put his mouth on hers. He pinched her nose shut and breathed into her. Her chest rose. Butch turned his head to one side, spat, and took another deep breath. He blew into her again, and her chest rose again. He lifted his head and stared at me, bug-eyed. "It's like kissing plastic," he said, then did it again. While he was bent over her, the woman's eyes opened. She looked at me through the bristles of Butch's buzz cut. When Butch pulled back, she took another of those rasping, guttural breaths. "The kit!" Butch said. "EpiPen! Inogen too! Hurry! Fucking run!" I swayed on my feet and for a moment thought I was going to faint. I slapped myself to clear my head, then ran for the cabin. Whatever it is, will be dead when I get back, I thought. I told you. None of this ever escaped my memory. That's probably good. The first aid kit was just inside the door, with our packs on top of it. I shoved them aside and opened it. There were 2 fold-out drawers, 3 EpiPens in the top one. I took 2 of them and rammed the drawers shut, pinching my right index finger in the process. That nail turned black and fell off, but at the time, I didn't even feel it. My head was throbbing. I felt like I had a fever. The Inogen oxygen bottle with the attached mask and the controller was in the bottom, along with flares, rolls of bandage, gauze pads, a plastic splint, an ankle brace, various tubes and ointments. There was also a pen light. I took that as well and sprinted back down the path with the light swinging back and forth in front of me. Butch was still on his knees. The woman was still giving intermittent gasps for breath. Her eyes were still open. As I dropped to my knees beside Butch, she stopped breathing again. He bent, sealed his mouth over hers, and pushed breath into her, raised his head and said, "Thigh, thigh. I know, I took the course. Then do it." He gulped another breath and went at her again. I popped the cap on the epi, put it against her thigh. It looked like corduroy pants, but it wasn't. It was her thigh. And listened for the click. Then I counted to 10. At 5, she gave a hard jerk. "Hold on, Lair, hold it." "I'm holding it. Do you think I should use the other one?" "Save it. She's breathing again." Whatever she is. Christ. The taste of her is so weird. Like one of those see-through slip covers you put on furniture. "Have you got the oxygen?" "Right here." I gave him the mask and bottle. He held the mask over her mouth and nose. I hit the power switch on the controller and saw the green light. "High flow?" Yeah. Shoot the works." I saw a drop of sweat from his forehead hit the plastic mask and run down the side like a tear. I pushed the slider all the way to high flow. Oxygen began to hiss. On high, the oxy would last for no more than 5 minutes. And while there were backups of almost everything in the kit, there was a reason it was so heavy. This was the only Inogen. We stared at each other across her. "This is not a human being," I said. "I don't know what it is. Maybe some top secret cyborg, but it's not human. It's not a cyborg." He jerked his thumb at the sky. When the oxy ran out, Butch removed the mask and she, might as well call her that, kept breathing on her own. The rasps quieted. I shone the light on her face, and she closed her eyes against the glare. "Look," I said. "Look at her face, Butchie." He looked, then looked at me. "It's different now." "It's more human now, is what you mean. And look at her clothes. They look better too. More jeepers. More realistic. What do we do with her?" I snapped off the light. Her eyes opened. I said, "Do you hear me?" She nodded. "Who are you?" She closed her eyes. I shook her shoulder, and my fingers no longer sank in. "What are you?" Nothing. I looked at Butch. "Let's take her to the cabin," he said. "I'll carry her. Keep that other EpiPen ready if she starts to choke and rasp for breath again." He got her in his arms. I helped him to his feet, but he carried her easily enough once he was upright. Her dark hair hung down, and when the breeze gusted, it blew the way normal hair does. The clumping was gone. I had left the cabin door open. He carried her in, put her on the sofa, then bent over with his hands on his knees, getting his breath back. "I want my camera. It's in my pack. Will you get it?" I found it, wrapped in a couple of T-shirts, and gave it to him. The woman, now she almost did look like a woman, was looking up at him. Her eyes were a washed-out blue, like the knees of old denim pants. "Smile pretty," Butch said. She didn't smile. He took her picture anyway. "What's your name?" I asked. No response. Butch took another picture. I leaned forward, put my hand on her neck. I thought she might pull away, but she didn't. It looked like skin, unless you look closely. But it didn't quite feel like skin. I held my hand there for maybe 20 seconds, then took it away. "She has no pulse." "No?" He didn't sound surprised, and I didn't feel surprised. We were in shock. Our processing equipment overloaded. Butch tried to slide his hand into the right front pocket of her corduroy pants and couldn't. "Not a real pocket," he said. "None of it is. It's like a costume." "I think she's a costume." "What do we do with her, Butch?" "Fucked if I know." "Call the police?" He lifted his hands and then dropped them. A very un-Butch-like gesture of indecision. "The closest phone is Brownie's store. That's miles from here. And Brownie closes at 7. I'd have to carry her across the bridge to the Jeep." "I'd take a turn." I said this stoutly enough, but I kept thinking of how my fingers had sunk into what looked like boots and weren't. "It would mean testing the bridge again," he said. "As for moving her, she's stable now, but..." "What? What are you smiling about?" I gestured to the woman, what looked like a woman, on the couch. "She has no pulse, Butchie. She's clinically dead. You can't get much more stable than that." "But she's breathing. And she's..." He checked to make sure. "She's looking at us." "Listen, Laird. Are you prepared to be on the front page of every newspaper and the lead story on every TV station, not just in Maine or the US, but in the whole round world? Because if we take her out, that's what it'll come to. She's an alien. She came from outer fucking space. And not with a lust for Earth women either. Unless she's a lesbian," I said. "Then she might, lust for Earth women." We started laughing, the way you do when you're trying not to go crazy. She was still looking at us. No smile, no frown, no expression of any kind. A woman who wasn't a woman, who had no pulse but was breathing, who was wearing clothes that weren't clothes but looked more like clothes all the time. I had an idea that if Butch tried to hit the pocket now, his hand would go in. He might even find some change or a half-used roll of lifesavers. Why did she end up on the bridge? What do you suppose happened to her? I don't know. I think I never heard what he thought. That was when light flooded in the east-facing window of our cabin's main room. Thoughts came to me, knocking each other over like dominoes. The first was that time had slipped somehow and the sun was coming up. The second was that sunrise was never that bright in our cabin because there were too many trees on that side. My third was that some government organization had come for the woman and those were searchlights. The fourth was that someone had come for her. All right, but it wasn't the government. The light grew brighter still. Butch squinted and raised a hand to shield his eyes. I did the same. I wondered if we were taking a hard dose of radioactivity just before the room grew so bright that my vision whitened out. I looked at the woman on the couch. Remember me saying that, like old Rennie Lacus. These pictures never escaped my memory. There's one exception to that. I can't remember what I saw when I looked at her in that awful brilliance. Or maybe I blocked it out. Either way, I don't think I was looking at her at all. I think I was looking into her. As to what I saw, I can remember thinking just one word. Ganglia. I covered my eyes. No good. The light shone straight through my hands and through my closed eyelids. There was no heat, but it was going to burn my brains to a cinder just the same. I heard Butch scream. That was when I lost consciousness, and I was glad to go. When I came to, the awful brilliance was gone. So was the woman. Sitting on the couch where she'd been was a young man, maybe 30, probably younger, with neatly combed blonde hair, the part as straight as a ruler. He was wearing khaki pants and a quilted vest. A small shoulder bag hung at his side from a strap across his chest. My first thought was he was an out-of-state hunter, a flatlander, with ammo in his bag and a scoped rifle nearby. Probably not, was my second one. We had half a dozen battery-powered lamps, and he'd turned them all on. They gave plenty of light, but nothing like that unearthly, literally, glare that had invaded our cabin earlier. How much earlier was a question I couldn't answer. I wasn't even sure it was the same night. I looked at my watch, but it had stopped. Butch sat up, looked around, saw me, saw the newcomer. He asked a question that was both mad and, under the circumstances, completely logical. Are you her? No, the young man said. That one is gone. I tried for my feet and made it okay. I didn't feel hungover or dazed. If anything, invigorated. And while I'd seen a dozen movies about evil invaders from space, I didn't feel that this young man meant us any harm. Nor did I believe he was actually a young man any more than the woman from the bridge had been a young woman. There was a pitcher of water and 3 leftover cans of beer in our little cold box. I debated and took a beer. "Give me one," Butch said. I tossed it and he caught it one-handed. "What about you, sir?" I asked. Why not? I gave him the last can. Our visitor looked normal, like any young man on a hunting trip with his friends or his dad, but I was still careful not to touch his fingers. I can write what happened, but as to how I felt, much more complicated. All I can do is reiterate that I didn't feel threatened, and later on Butch said the same. Of course, we were in shock. You're not human, are you? Butch said. The young man opened his beer. No. But you're in better shape than she was. That one was badly hurt. You saved her life. I think it was what you call luck. You could just as easily have injected her with something that would have killed her. But the EpiPen worked, I said. Is that what you call it? EpiPen? Short for epinephrine. So I guess it was an allergy that knocked her down? Could have been a bee sting, Butch said and shrugged. Do you know what bees are? Yes. You also gave her your breath. That was the actual saving. Breath is life. More than life. I did what we were taught. Laird would have done the same. I'd like to think that was true. The young man took a sip of beer. May I take the can when I go? Butch sat on the arm of one of our two old easy chairs. Well, old man, you'd be robbing me of the nickel deposit, but under the circumstances, sure. Only because you're from another planet, you understand. Our visitor smiled the way people do when they understand it's a joke but don't get the point. He had no accent, certainly not a down east twang, but I got the clear sense of a man who was speaking a learned language. He opened his bag. There was no zipper. He just ran his finger down its length and it opens. He popped the bud can inside. Most people wouldn't have done what you did. Most would have run away. But shrugged. Instinct and a little training, I guess. Laird and me are in the local volunteer fire department. Do you get that? You halt combustion before it can spread. I guess that's one way of putting it. The young man dipped into his bag and brought out something that looked like a spectacle case. It was gray, with a silver shape like a sin wave embossed on the lid. He held it in his lap. He repeated, most people wouldn't have done what you did. We owe you. For Yilla. I knew that name, and although he pronounced it Yella, I knew the correct spelling, and I could see by his eyes that he knew I knew. That's from the Martian Chronicles. But you're not from Mars, sir, are you? He smiled. Not at all. Nor are we here because we lust for Earth women. Butch put his beer down carefully, as if a hard bump might shatter the can. You're reading our minds. Sometimes, not always. It's like this. With one finger, he traced the wave shape on the gray case. Thoughts don't matter to us. They come, they pass, they are replaced by others. Ephemera. We are more interested in the engine that drives them. Two intelligent creatures, that is what's central, powerful, meaningful. I don't know the correct word. Perhaps you don't have one. Primal, I said. He nodded, smiled, and sipped his beer. Yes, primal. Good. Where do you come from? Butch asked. It doesn't matter. Why? I asked. Why do you come? That's a more interesting question. And because you saved Yella, I will answer it. We gather. Gather what? I asked, and thought of stories I'd read and seen on TV about aliens kidnapping folks and sticking probes up their asses. People? No. Other things. Items. But not like this. Alexa, cancel. He reached into his bag and showed his empty beer can. This is special to me and means nothing. There's a good word for it. Perhaps French? A veneer. Souvenir, I said. Yes, it is my souvenir of this remarkable night. We visit yard sales. You're joking, I said. They are called different things in different places. In Italy, vendita in cantiera. Samoan, fanua fatua. We take some of these things to remember, some to study. We have film of your Kennedy's death from rifle shots. We have an autographed picture of Judy. Wait, Butch was frowning. Are you talking about Judge Judy? Yes, Judy. We have a picture of Emmett Till, a young man with his face gone. Mickey Mouse and his club. We have a jet engine. That came from a repository of discarded objects. They're dump pickers, I thought. Not much different from René Lacasse. We take these things to remember your world, which will be gone soon. We do the same on other worlds, but there aren't many. The universe is cold. Intelligent life is rare. I didn't care how rare it was. How soon will ours be gone? Do you know? Or are you only guessing? And before he could reply, you can't know. Not for sure. It may be what you call a century, if you are, as you say, lucky, which is only an eye blink in the sweep of time. I don't believe that, Butch said flatly. We've got our problems, but we're not suicidal. Then perhaps thinking of Buddhist monks who had been setting themselves on fire in Vietnam not so long ago. Not most of us. It's inevitable, the young man said. He looked regretful. Maybe he was thinking of the Mona Lisa or the pyramids, or maybe just of no more beer cans, no more autographed pictures of Judy. When intelligence outraces emotional stability, it's always just a matter of time. He pointed to a corner of the cabin. Your children playing with weapons. He stood up. I must go. This is for you. A gift. Our way of saying thank you for saving Yella. He held out the gray case. Butch took it and looked it over. I don't see how to open it. I took it. He was right. There was no hinge, no lid. Breathe on the wave, the young man said. Not now. After I've gone. We give you a key of breath because you gave Yella yours. You gave her part of your life. This is for both of us? I asked. Only Butch had given the woman mouth to mouth, after all. Yes. What does it actually do? There is no word for what it does except primal, a way to use what you are not using. Because of, he bent forward, brow furrowed, then looked up. Because of the noise in your lives. Because of your thoughts. Thoughts are pointless, worse, dangerous. I was bemused. Does it grant wishes? Like a fairy tale? He laughed, then looked surprised, as if he hadn't known he could laugh. Nothing can give you what isn't already there. This is axiomatic. He went to the door, then looked back. I'm sorry for you. Your world is a living breath in a universe that is mostly filled with dead lights. He left. I waited for the light to flood in, but it didn't. Except for the gray case Butch was now holding. The whole interlude might never have occurred. Blair? Did that actually happen? I pointed to the case. He smiled, the reckless one that went right back to when we were kids, racing up and down the suicide stairs in Castle Rock, feeling them shake beneath our pounding sneakers. Want to try it? There's an old saying, beware of Greeks bearing gifts. Yeah, but what the hell? I'm game. Blow your precious primal breath, Butchie. He smiled, shook his head, and held the case out. After you. And if it kills you, I promise to take care of Sheila and Mark. Mark's almost old enough to take care of himself, I said. Okay. Open sesame. I blew gently on the wave. The case opened. It was empty. But when I breathed in, I caught a faint whiff of peppermint. I think that was it. The case closed by itself. There was no line where the lid met the body, and indeed no hinges. It looked completely solid. Nothing? Butch said. Nothing. You try. I held it out to him. He took it and breathed gently on the wave. The case popped open. He bent down, took a timid sniff, then a deep breath. The case shut. Wintergreen? I thought peppermints, but I guess they're about the same. So much for Greeks bearing gifts, he said. Blair, it wasn't some kind of a hoax, was it? You know, like some girl and some guy pretending to be, a trick. He stopped. No, huh? No. He put the gray case on the end table next to his drawing pad. What are you going to tell Sheila? Nothing, I guess. I'd prefer it if my wife didn't think I've gone crazy. He laughed. Good luck with that. She can read you like a book. He was right, of course. And when Sheila pushed, which she did, I told her no. We had gotten lost. We'd had a close call in the woods. Some hunter had fired at what he thought was a deer, and the bullet went between us. We never saw who it was. I told her, and when she asked Butch, he backed me up. He said it had probably been some out-of-state flatlander. Butch had seen a couple, so that much was true. Butch yawned. I'm going to bed. You can sleep? Then I yawned too. What time is it anyway? Butch looked at his watch and shook his head. Stopped. Yours? Yes, and I yawned again. It's a wind-up. Should be fine, but it's not. Late. What we breathed in, I think it was some kind of sedative. What if it's poisonous? Then we'll die, I said. I'm going to bed. That's what we did. I had a dream of fire. It was full daylight when I woke up. Butch was in the kitchen part of the main room. The coffee pot was on the stove, huffing away. He asked how I felt. Okay, I said. You? Fine as paint. Whatever that means. Coffee? Yes. Then we ought to go see if the bridge is still there. If it is, we'll get going. Show up earlier than planned. Which we do some years anyway, he said, and poured. Black coffee, rich and strong. Just the thing after an encounter with creatures from another world. By daylight, it all should have seemed hallucinatory, but it didn't. Not to me. And when I asked Butch, he said the same. The Wonder Bread was gone, but there were a couple of fruit pies left. I imagined Sheila shaking her head and saying that only men in the woods would eat Hostess fruit pies for breakfast. Good, Butch said, munching. Yes, excellent. Did you have dreams from that stuff we breathed in, Butchie? Nope. He considered. At least not that I remember. But look at this. He picked up his pad and flipped past the pictures he'd drawn during our evenings. The usual sketches and caricatures, including one of me with a big grin on my balloon head, flipping flapjacks in a skillet. Near the back, he stopped and held the pad up to me. It was our young visitor from the previous night. Blonde hair, vest, khaki pants, shoulder bag. It was no caricature. It was that man. Might as well call him that. To the life. With one exception. Butch had filled his eyes with stars. Holy shit! That's terrific, I said. How long have you been up anyway? About an hour. I did that in 20 minutes. I just knew what to do. Like it was already there. Never changed a single line. Crazy, right? Wow. What did we just read? What did we just read, friends? How crazy is that story? And it's not done yet. But now we know. Definitely aliens. From what planets? We don't know. Will we ever know? I'm not sure. But that is it for today's Turn the Page Thursday. Make sure you have subscribed and you click that notification bell because I cannot wait for next Thursday. We're going to keep going. We got to be getting close to the end of this story. Remember, this book is short stories, so it's not the full book as one story. Okay. I'm not sure how I feel about the aliens yet. I don't know. Aliens. Is that a cop-out? Should it have been something different? What would it have been? I'm not sure how I feel yet. But let's wait and see when the story's over. Till then, have a great day, guys. Bye.